You look great.
I've got the blues, I feel so lonely. I'd give the world if I could only make you understand. It surely would be grand.
Hello, and welcome to Hanging Out at the Exit Cafe. It's a little talk show that the Exit Theater started so we can stay as connected to our friends and family at the theater without actually being in the space. This is our way to sort of have those casual, wonderful conversations you would have right before seeing the show in our Exit Cafe, but in your home. And so you don't have to wear pants, and that's great. My name is Amanda Ortmeyer. I am the production manager and technical director of the Exit Theater, and right now the talk show host, because that's what that is right now. We do this show on Tuesdays, and we'll get a little bit more consistent as the year goes on. But what we're doing right now is we're interviewing folks who are working in our program that's Exit Theater Presents. Some of you saw a couple of weeks ago, The Empress Walk of Matilda. That was our first live streaming production, and we have one coming up Thursday called Hick, a Love Story. Some of you may know about it already, some of you may not. We'll talk about it tonight. I want to let you know that there is a recommended donation of $5 for this show. However, it's not like I'm going to kick you out if you don't give me I can't find you. It's fine. But you can always donate more or less. You can donate on our Facebook page, our Exit page. Just look for the Donate to Exit Theater button. I'm sure it's somewhere. Tonight, we're going to talk to Terry Baum and Carolyn Myers about Hick, a Love Story. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on our guests. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good. That was fun bopping on.
Yeah, well, it's the way you got to do it. I mean, we're all sort of getting used to this process of living in the Zoom world. And so, you figure it out. You just sort of throw people into the space. It's good.
Easiest commute I ever had to the Exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I would agree with that. And I go there often. So the first thing I like to do in these interviews is ask everybody the same question, which is, what is the best and worst thing about the pandemic or stay-at-home orders for you? I don't want to even go first.
I'll go.
Okay.
I would say the best thing is my blog. I've started blogging when the pandemic started. And it's called Baum blog, and I have about 500 people who I send it out many times a week, depending on what's going on in my life and in the country and in the world.
Yeah.
And, people really, it's important to them,
Good.
And I get a lot of response. And also I just have to say that this project of live streaming is very exciting to me and wouldn't have happened without the pandemic. I've never done that before.
Yeah, it is forcing all of us to learn a new skill,
Yeah.
or several, as the case may be. What's the worst thing about the pandemic?
Well, I think I really miss the marketplace. I really, I don't have a car. I shop a lot just by walking to the little stores in my neighborhood, and I know the people, and just, selecting my own jiquimas and apples, and then getting a ride home in the shuttle with Dennis, who likes my standard poodles. All these little things of being in the community, interacting. Yeah, that is the thing that I really, really miss.
Do you do you have the moments where you get to shout across the street at your neighbors? Because I know that that's what we've gotten very good at. Is
really?
Making relationships.
Yes, we talk. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, one time, the very first time I shouted across the street at somebody very early on. What was I telling? She was telling me something, or I was telling her something. Anyhow. Yeah, I thought, oh, this is what happens now when you see your neighbor.
Yeah, because it's weird to sort of be like, well, I'm not allowed to go near you, but I know you exist.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Carolyn?
Well, I guess the worst thing is similar to Terry's. Well, I do have little grandchildren who are too young for social media, so that's really hard not seeing them. But I would say the hardest thing for me is that lack of gathering together. You know, I feel like, and that's one of the things I loved about theater. I love it about the Exit, the way you have the cafe and the random encounters. Also, I really miss. I took a walk and I got to Dolores Park, which I live kind of near, and it was just a nice day. But Dolores Park had a lot of people in it. I walked around the edge, and I felt like I was at the Renaissance Fair or something. It was so exciting just to see so many people. It was the most people I'd seen in months. And then I also just love theater. You know, the gathering together, people sitting. I feel like people coming together to hear each other tell stories. To me, that's the primal human thing. And I know one time I had a friend who lived for quite a while in a war-torn area. And he told me that that was the worst thing, was that he felt he never got together casually with a group of people. That didn't happen during those years and how hard that was. Wow. And I really feel like that. You know, I worked in the schools for many years. I was a teacher. And I found that I liked teaching drama, at-risk kids, and special ed. And because all of those groups, you're with one group of people for an extended period of time. The classes are often smaller, and you have a lot of time to get to know this small group of usually quite intense people. And that share, and most of them, not the actors, because they're the successful aspect, but the at-risk kids, and then of course special ed kids, a lot of them haven't had that as part of their lives. Either they're left out because where they're at within themselves mentally and physically, or because they've had these really hard lives that have led them to this point of being at risk. And all bringing that storytelling in, and that circle group was just, that's what I care about the most. And so I miss that from theater. And
what's the best thing for you?
The best thing is sort of, in some ways, it's the same in that the circle's gotten much bigger. I'm really active in a Buddhist community, and I've been active in the same Buddhist community since the late 70s. And now, whereas we have these get-togethers and 20 people come, you know, that's sort of where it's gotten to. Now, we're having these gatherings and 200 people are coming, including people I haven't seen since the 1980s, and including people in Nepal and people in India and people in France. And that's how, you know, doing the show will be too. I feel like I personally have friends coming who have never been able to see the show because it's always been geographically too far away. So I love that. I just feel like that expanded community is so wonderful.
Yeah, I do think that that's probably happening across a lot of theaters, in that we're all sort of reaching out to people who were less convenient before, but now it's about who has the energy to connect and make something happen, and your location is no longer as relevant as it was. And that is a great opportunity. It would, but you know, I miss the group social gathering. It's a group social community or whatever, especially for theater, and having a shared artistic experience, which is really important, I think. So we're here to talk about Hick, which we're doing a live production of on Thursday. So Hick has been around for a bit. Can you talk about the beginnings of Hick?
Well, the beginning, Hick began, we were doing we were the Crackpot Crones. Carolyn and I started being the Crackpot Crones the beginning of 2009. And we were performing at the National Queer Arts Festival, which is in June. And we said, let's do it as a benefit for the Pat Bond Old Dyke Award, which I had started X years ago, for an award for old lesbians for their contributions to the community. And we knew that it was being organized again. So we said, let's make it a benefit. So then we said, Pat Bond was, for a lot of people, she was the very first out lesbian they ever saw perform live. She toured the country with all these monologues about her life and being a lesbian in the armed forces and what the San Francisco gay scene was in the 50s. And she also did a solo show on Lorena Hickok. So Carolyn and I said, let's do one of Pat's monologues since this is a benefit. And we decided on her show on Hick, which opened in 1985, I think. And we chose, Carolyn really did all this research on her work, and we chose a short monologue. It was just one scene.
Well, that was sort of it. That's the short version.
On, please.
The long version is, now I don't remember where we got the file from, if that was from the archive or whether it was in the file cabinet. I don't remember.
No, it was from the library.
It was from the library. Oh, right. From the archives in the San Francisco Library.
Yeah.
So we knew she'd done a play. She did a play on Gertrude Stein and she did a play on Lorena Hickok. So originally, I think we thought, well, Terry will do Gertrude Stein, I'll do Lorena Hickok. So, but then I got it, and it wasn't a play. It was like a phone book of many of the same scenes done over and over, but in different ways. I mean, it wasn't organized like one script. It was a good 200 pages of bits of scenes, including the same scene, but slightly different many times. Right. I mean, before there was the word processor, you tended to have more things like that when you just had a typewriter. And so I stayed up. And I remember still have this vivid memory of sitting in my bed. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to organize them with these stacks all around me. And then there was this one scene that was very romantic and wonderful. And so I put it together. I tried to make it solid into one scene. I took it down to Terry. And I remember she looked at me and she said, "You will play Lorena Hickok over my dead body." I
thought I said that after I actually played it.
Maybe it was after you. Maybe it was after you.
Not willing to give that part up, were you?
Yeah.
Typical of me to say something.
I know. But it was just like clear to me while I was sitting there before I ever saw Terry. I just knew when I read it. I thought, this is it. This is what we're going to do. Yeah.
That's so great.
Yeah, because it was perfect.
Yeah, and then the response, it was one scene in this show of many scenes, many of them comic, and that was what everybody talked about afterwards. And they wanted to see more of it, and I wanted to do more of it, and Carolyn also felt this is something that we're supposed to do, because Pat's there was so much more available information to research now than when Pat did her play.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, right.
And Pat really focused solely on the relationship between Hick and Eleanor, whereas Hick was a famous journalist. She's actually, her writing is studied in graduate schools of journalism.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something about, her as a writer too. So it seemed like this, it's nice when you're compelled, and there it is.
I was trying to remember today if I knew about this love story before you guys brought it to the exit. And because I think I'd heard about it before. But I had not, I'm not sure if I didn't really internalize it until you guys brought it to the exit and we started talking a little bit more.
Well, when we opened it, the full play in 2014, I would say very few people knew about that. Even, sophisticated, educated lesbians, knew a lot of lesbian history. So, she's an incredible person. Of course, Eleanor Roosevelt is so incredible. And the fact that they had this passionate lesbian relationship and the letters documented is very, very cool.
It is cool. I mean, I think that's part of certainly any sort of LGBT history is that so often people have had to hide their identity. So we don't know who's famous. And so, we have guesses and theories and stuff like that. But to know that relationship existed. And also anytime you get two great people in a relationship, it must have been electric. It must have been wonderful, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
and also Hick was very, very supportive of Eleanor in the beginning of their relationship. You know, when they were in love, when Eleanor became First Lady, it was something she was dreading. And
Yeah.
some of the things that Eleanor did were Hick's ideas. Her having a press conference once a week for women reporters.
Oh,
That
wow.
was Hick's idea, because Hick was all about trying to figure out how to keep jobs for women reporters.
Yeah.
And then Eleanor also, Eleanor would write these long letters to Hick just about the incidents of her day. And Hick said, look, this would be a great column. People would be interested in the daily life of the First Lady. And Eleanor had a column, My Day, for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's really
daily
cool.
column.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
If you go to the estate, there's like a machine, and you can type in your birthday or any date you want, and the column for My Day will come up, and you can read it.
Cool.
Yeah, there's thousands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every day. That's really great.
Yeah.
When did you guys start working at the Exit Theater? When did we all cross paths? It's been a while.
The second,
I couldn't remember the beginning.
holidays. Crohn's for
What
the
was it?
Holidays, the sequel. That's when we went to the Exit. So that would have been in 2013.
What was
that
the show again?
2013, when you were closed for the holiday, we called up to see if we could come to a holiday show. And they said the Exit Theater's closed, but if you want to, you can do it. You might have been there, Amanda.
Oh yeah, you were there.
Somebody helped us there, but it was very weird because usually, so much is going on, and it was just us over the holidays.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah,
Crohn's for the Holidays, the sequel.
That sounds right. And you've applied for the Fringe several times as well.
Terry's been in the Fringe with Hick, and with a different version of Hick than we're doing, and with Waiting for the Podiatrist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. When you did the stage productions, you were saying earlier, because I actually missed Hick because I was getting
That's right. I remember that.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I remember I gave you a tour of the venue, and I was like, bye, and then I ran away. But you said that the Eleanor Roosevelt parts were all recorded, so it was all voiceover.
Mm-hmm.
That's really lovely. That's really sweet. I like that we get to see her, though.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah. We actually get to see the performance in this, but that's very lovely. And she does have a great voice. So
yes.
Isn't she wonderful?
Yeah, she's great.
In a certain way, we were inspired to do this because because of the pandemic, Paula was available. Because she works as a dresser on the big theatrical productions.
That's her career. Yeah.
Being a dresser, that's cool.
Yeah.
I went through a very brief period of being a dresser.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've done, I was a costumer, and I worked at a summer rep company, and I was a dresser backstage. It's just it's fun. I mean, the being backstage, I think, is the most fun, especially if your actors trust you, and you trust your actors to not be rude. But I remember the year I was a dresser, we had mono run through the company. Because it was a summer rep company, and mono's a kissing disease, and so everybody had it. And we were doing some period piece, and all the women were wearing corsets, and during their breaks, I would have to unlace their corsets and shove ice to keep their organs cool. Then
wow.
Yeah, so there was a period of time where I was exceptionally good at lacing and unlacing corsets.
Well.
There was a period of time where I was like, really like
a talent that's hard to find a place for.
I haven't had the opportunity to practice it much, except for that one time, because rarely do you need to lace up a corset in lightning speed.
Somebody else's corset.
Lacing your own is just its own game. So, so that's very interesting. So you were talking about the Crohn's. So you guys have that, you Crackpot Crohn's. Is that just a performance duo? Is
yes, we're a classic comedy duo.
Is it sketch?
What?
Is it in sketch?
It's
or-
sketch. It's mostly sketch with a little improv.
That's
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
And when we went to Mexico, we were Las Rucas Locas, which is sort of like the crazy somethings.
crazy old ladies.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So did you tour around as your?
Yeah. We had a tour in Mexico. We hired we hired 2 different Mexican actresses, and we probably should have had them even do more, but they sort of narrated and explained what scenes were about and introduced
Really
things.
cool.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah, it
cool.
was
It was
pretty
fun.
wonderful. It was when we performed in Mexico in this women's center that was in this abandoned church. It was, and all these young dykes came, and they were so excited to see what we were doing. I mean, they wanted us to move there, and it was really fun.
Yeah. Ty McKenzie. Yeah, we performed. We started the Crackpot Crones. We were at Stageworks. Hi, Ty.
Stageworks says I actually got to I did a design at Stageworks, and I got to perform at Stageworks, and I will say, having known Ty for quite some time, that theater was just so functional.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That doesn't sound like a big compliment, but it is.
Yeah.
Theater, I'm like, everything is clean and functional, and it was just very, very, very delightful. So yeah, it was good times. Who's Copper Jet?
Oh, that's Naomi.
That's Naomi.
We need old lesbian comedy.
That's right. That's what we are.
Hey, more old lesbian comedy. I think that's great.
Right.
And on that note, you guys have a podcast, don't you?
Yes, we are still in the sort of beginning phases of the Crackpot Crones podcast. And
Cool.
that is also, it's not sketch. It's some of it's talking about our lives and reading scenes from the shows, and some of it's topical, and some of it's sort of sketch. You know, we have or improv, just scenes we build up out of improv.
Where do people find your podcast?
Terry, you want to?
Well, our business manager has it on all the different ones. Was it?
So Spotify.
Crohn's Crack Open the World. Is that the name of it?
Yeah, but I think you can. Yeah, and certainly you can find a link to it on the Lilith Theater website.
That's
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about Lilith Theater and the beginning of Lilith Theater, and is Lilith Theater? I'm guessing it's more than just the 2 of you. I actually don't know. I've never asked these questions.
Well, it was, but
Less so now.
it really is. We are Lilith Theater. Yes.
And so, was it something that happened?
Yeah,
with Crackpot Crones.
Oh, let's tell the beginning of it, because it's in the book. Yes, we have this book published by Exit Press, and in it we tell the story of our, among other things, we tell the story of our long collaboration. We met in 1972, and yes, and in 1975, the fall of 75, or that we think it was, that we went to the Amazon Music Festival.
So. Yeah.
We went to the Amazon Music Festival, one of the first women's music festivals in Santa Cruz up in the mountains.
Okay.
And there were 500 women there, and people didn't have any clothes on or didn't have any shirts on.
Why would
and it was a wild celebration, and the music was fabulous. It was incredible. And then in the middle of the whole thing, a very small group of men on motorcycles who used that little resort that we'd rented for the weekend showed up on their motorcycles. And they were used to coming to the clubhouse there and hanging out, so they were furious that they couldn't come in. And despite the fact that there were 500 women, only 5 of them, their macho intensity was such that they could not see that this could be a problem for them, and they were planning to attack. And so I was part of the group that happened to be near the gate, and we started trying to explain to them how important it was that they leave and not interrupt this, and that this wasn't going to go well for them. But Terry was in the monstrous regiment of women that was moving towards them.
I was part of the group that had dropped acid.
Yes.
The fun group?
It's time. it's time to settle accounts.
Yes. Yeah. And so the 5 of us or 6 of us that are at the gate, we're seeing these women approaching, and we're seeing these men unable to understand that this is not a good scene for them. And so, but then during this whole thing, Terry had a vision of starting a women's theater group. So
I felt an enormous rage against the patriarchy.
Sure.
And I felt that I wanted to create a theater that would express that rage. I also happened to be working with a new theater in Santa Cruz, Bear Republic Theater, and I was the only woman there. So I was also
that'll do it.
What?
So that'll do
I
it.
was
Even though those
experiencing
men were great. They were great.
Men were sweetie pies, but I felt totally isolated because I had different ideas about what the world was like than they did. And so I started Lilith. Lilith is a Jewish, really, she's considered a demon in Jewish folk mythology, but in early editions of the Genesis, she is Adam's first
wife.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some thought that like she gave birth to all the demons or something. But
that was after she was Adam's first wife, because Adam demanded that she lie beneath him. And she said, why should I lie beneath you? Because we were created equal from dust. Yeah. So I'm not going to lie under you. So that's when she was either thrown out or left Eden. And then Eve was created from Adam's rib to try to guarantee her subservience. So
that's right.
So I'm Jewish. So in my religious tradition, Lilith is emblematic of a rebellious woman. So
that's thank you for reminding me of, because I remember some little pieces of Lilith, and Lilith always comes up whenever we're talking about like Adam and Eve. And
so I started it in Berkeley in 1974. Carolyn, you came up the next year, right? Yes.
Yeah, I came up. I ran when you did the first show at the intersection. That's when I came up because I was your techie.
Yeah. So Carol, there was 2 other women, Shelley Fields and Carol.
Charlotte
Colvin. The 3 of us were the theater. And it was a time when feminism was just happening. It was very, very exciting to be, really putting that vision out into the world. It was wonderful.
It's interesting thinking about that, because when I joined theater, because I like small theater, I found lots of women, right? And so like whenever I joined San Francisco Theater, over 400 startup theater companies, and there is Christina, who was the founder of the Exit Theater, and that is a female-led theater, very much so. And then there was Brava, and so there's all the and great female technical directors like Ty McKenzie, and so all across the board there were great women, until you had theaters with more money, and then those theaters were not hiring as many women. So I think someone was talking about like equity actresses. You can have 1 female equity actor working at a time in the city and like 25 men. So it's just when you can start to make money is when there's still such a sexism horrible.
Yeah, well, there's, in regular classical theater, I was a great play reader and have an MA in theater and have read so many plays. And really the good parts for men are just about 10 times the good parts for women in the history of theater until the last 30 years.
Right.
So
yeah. I have a big question, so don't get overwhelmed by it, but why theater? Out of all the methods of expression.
Terry and I both got our start in theater when we were extremely young. And we think it was mainly the experience of applause.
I get that.
I just think everybody starts out in theater. because children play games and they play roles.
Mm-hmm.
So Carolyn and I just never
Never
stopped.
stopped.
That's all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
really the question is, why not theater? Why did you do something other than theater? So
You know what? I think that's my favorite
and
answer ever.
developing these complex plots and acting them out wasn't good enough for you?
All right.
You had to become a doctor?
Where did we go wrong?
So for me, and I think Carolyn, really, it's the same thing. It's like a straight line.
Yeah.
From,
Yeah.
I was always a dog when I was very young. And because I couldn't have a dog, I was a dog.
Sure.
And I was really thrilled. The neighbor asked if my mother, if she had gotten a new puppy. And I just, wow, was I proud of my performance.
Yeah, that's a good performance. That is very good.
Well, the first time, I did have this, I had several wonderful experiences in very early elementary school, both as an audience. Well, I think I just want to share that, first of all, as an audience member, there was a boy that was older. I was in kindergarten. He was a 6th grader, but there were a lot of kids in that family. So I knew him. He was a neighbor. And this elementary school put on a show, and luckily, since there were no videotapes then, there's no real records. So in my mind, the show that the 6th grade put on at Fallbrook Elementary School is the equivalent of any Broadway show. This is probably not true, but
it's possible.
It's possible. It's possible. But the really amazing thing to me was that this kid, Eck, his last name was Eck, Brad Eck. I was a chubby little girl, and he was my torturer. Not in the modern way of no abuse, but just he teased me. He was unmerciful. He was I saw him as a total bully. I was terrified of him. And then we went to see the, kindergarten, 1st grade. We went in to see the play, the 6th grade play, and he played Mr. Peppermint Stick, and he was the hero. And I was just blown away because I saw theater. It was magic. This person, this horrible being, turned out he was Mr. Peppermint Stick, and he was. I wanted that. And then I think my first experience of doing pretty much exactly what I do now is I lived on a farm, and we moved to San Diego when I was, and to the suburbs, which for me was fantastic because I'd been lonely, and now I was in a neighborhood. And I went out after Christmas, and there were all the Christmas trees by the trash. And I thought, oh my God, this is incredible. So I hauled them all home, and I set them up in the backyard, and I produced Hansel and Gretel. And how I convinced my mother, who was not given to such things, to play both the witch and the mother, but I did. And my father, cut a hole in the back of the playhouse. And anyway, and then years later, many, many, many years later, when my mother died in 2001, actually, at her funeral, some of the kids that had been in that production came. I hadn't seen them since high school, a lot of them not since elementary school. And they were just all like, you went on in theater? And they said, well, you still make all your actors sit on your bed while you yell at them for not. I said, well, yes, yes. That is similar to my life now. Not that I yell at my actors, but I think that was my first. We can put on a play. I will write it and direct it and produce it, and everybody will come, and it will be a desuccess. And there have been times in my life when I thought, maybe deciding that at 8 I could have done something else. It's pretty much a straight shot.
Yeah.
As long as you didn't peak at 8, so it's all downhill from 8 years old. That's no good. But that's really kind of wonderful. I like that very, very much. Let's talk a little bit about transitioning from theater to screen, to this format.
Oh yeah.
As we all know, and I will speak for Christina in this moment, and she has often says, "This isn't theater." Because she believes in people being in the rooms, like you want to be spit on by performers, even the thought of that makes her go COVID. But like the thought about it is very different. However, this isn't film either. And so a lot of theater companies, because this is the only way that they can perform, are working out how to do various performances, live or otherwise. But it is still a big transition. So what's that transition been like for you guys?
Well, for me, I had a very Carolyn, when we when we were rehearsing, Carolyn was saying, "You're not speaking to a whole audience. You're just speaking to one person. The camera is like one person." And I just couldn't get it. And then Carolyn videotaped a run through, and I saw myself, and I was horrified.
Huh.
I was horrified. It wasn't like it was good stage acting. It was like kind of falling in between two stools, but it was clear that I was presenting in a way that just was destroying the intimacy, was destroying the life, and one of the things I realized is that I was looking for a way to use the same energy that I have to have for a solo performance. And it's not only is it different energy, it's simply less. It's less power, to really communicate. And it was like, I had to see myself to realize, I don't know, to me, it's all been incredibly exciting. Although I was in the middle of doing publicity, and when I saw that first videotape, I thought, maybe I won't do any more publicity.
Oh,
no.
But then, learning moment. I got it.
Yeah.
I got it. So I am now exploring acting, being Hick, which I love being Hick. I love Hick. I feel I'm doing, I feel in communication with her spirit, it's,
that's a lovely thought. Yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Except when you are in communication with people's spirits, be careful what you ask for. That's all. But so this is different. And I am excited to learn something new. I really am. I just, and it's been great working with Carolyn. I just have been, she's been, we've worked together in so many different ways, and now she's directing in a new thing, which is, neither of us is technical. And of course, it's a different learning curve when you're in your 70s than when you're in your 40s, or 50s. I'm digging it, and I think it's very appropriate for a love story to become more intimate in this presentation. And I love acting with Paula, even though I never look at her.
Yeah, there is definitely a connection. Having, for those who don't know, I've seen a rehearsal or two. But there's definitely a connection that occurs between the two of you, and it's really quite lovely because that's a hard thing to recreate in this environment. And I think so much of it is we can get so frustrated about what it's not, that we don't take advantage of what it is, which is this opportunity to show nuance, right? Yeah. And I think for me, what's so interesting in watching you work is, I talk to Christina about this kind of thing too, because she has solo shows. And when you have a solo show like that, or a show or character that you've spent so much time with, that you've toured all over the place, to then be able to come back and sort of restructure what that performance looks like, and know that who the person is, who this person is that you're trying to portray, and you've been in their skin for a long time, but it's almost, it almost feels like a secret, like this is really who she is. And
you're right.
Yeah, right. That's cool. That's really good.
That's a very good point. Yeah. It's just, I have a great regret though about the live streaming, that it's just once. That's one of the things I love about theater, is to keep exploring. So it's hard for me that whatever we do, that's the end of this project, what we do on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, for now, just like
Yeah.
every other project, and at some point we might get back up to runs. It really depends on what happens to the world, and as soon as anyone knows what's going to happen, I would love to be made aware of that, so I can schedule
Right.
something.
Well, Carolyn, what about as a director?
Yeah, transition.
Well, I had a lot of doubts about doing it, about my ability to do it, and I've never done anything except stage. I mean, my experience with directing is very limited when it comes to video or film. And it's not something I really like. This though is different because you're not, once you've got it set up for the lights and sound and stuff, you really are just watching them so close up. It isn't a constant change. I mean, my little experience with film, there's so much time you're spending on the tech. I mean, it's just endless. But I've really, with Hick, overall, it's been incredible for me because we've had so many different experiences with it. And as a director, it's been really great because I've gone a lot of different places and worked with different crews and had different, and I've really enjoyed that. I've learned a lot. And this, at first, it seemed sort of shocking to me, the way, you just appear, like at the beginning of this talk. But now that I'm into it, I love it because Hick, not only is it an intimate love story that we're telling, but also it's really based on these real letters from Eleanor Roosevelt that she really wrote to Lorena Hickok. We got permission from the Roosevelt estate, or Terry did, to use them. And everything you hear Eleanor say in the play is verbatim. These are all Eleanor's words. So in fact, the play, the skeleton, the structure are these letters that, of course, Hick read by herself. I mean, it was when they were separate from each other that there was a reason to write letters. When they were together, they weren't writing letters. So it was always Hick, just mostly, I assume, sitting by herself somewhere, reading a letter. And so, and letters back in the day, letters have been a very important part of my life. So, I remember that experience, of getting the letter from someone and having this window open to what your friend is going through and what's going on with them. And it's like that. And this medium works really well for that. So it's very thrilling. I mean, we did it when we did the show last time at the Exit. We did have someone playing Eleanor. So I directed it before with someone else. But this is so much more intimate. So to see Eleanor writing the letter while Hick's reading it and vice versa, I got very enthralled. I really enjoyed it. So I think it translates really well. Yeah. And I don't know what I'll go on and do next, but I've really enjoyed learning the things I've learned with this. Yeah.
It's a fun process, and I think the other thing that we're learning, since it's we're all making this up as we go, right? This brand new art form, and there are articles about it too, and like someone was saying that the reading has new power now because people will read and you can't see their scripts, so you're not looking at a series of people in music stands. You're just watching a performance. So a reading has a lot more power than it did in the standard when you would go to a theater. And to me, this makes sense for reading. Like this makes perfect sense for reading, other than not being able to look at a person whenever you're having those conversations. But every show asks for its own thing. And so as you go from each show, you have to figure out how you're going to communicate that to your particular audience at that time. Yeah. It's really fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I don't get bored working on Hick because Terry brings new stuff to it all the time. And also she rewrites the show all the time. So this was a big rewrite. So. But it's interesting because I also know the show by heart, basically. I mean, it changes all the time, but I know it well enough that she and we can just talk about it. She can say a few lines. I know where that is. I know what that's about. So I have a great flexibility, a bigger flexibility with the script than with anything else. So that's fun. Yeah.
Also, I put in a lot more of Eleanor's letters in this show than were ever in Hick, because we have Paula there.
Yeah.
to do them. And she's so wonderful. And I always had felt I had to limit the letters because it was just a tape that people were hearing, except for that one run at the Exit Fringe Festival. And so I think it really, the letters are very important because the letters prove that this thing really happened. I mean, everybody knew that Hick was a dyke,
Right.
everybody called her mannish. So that was not something that was in question. But Eleanor Roosevelt having a lesbian relationship was, in fact, a very shocking thing. And because there's so much more of the letters included, I feel the evidence is now overwhelming.
Yeah.
The evidence before was sufficient to prove that Eleanor had a lesbian relationship, but now it's overwhelming. And I love that, especially because, frankly, she's Eleanor Roosevelt and her letters don't sound like other people's letters most of the time.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment on, in that the way that Eleanor, because I don't know much about Eleanor Roosevelt. I'm guessing she didn't have many relationships outside of Hick, but to be in a place to express love in that way, being so educated, being so smart, and being so powerful, and having to worry about what people say about you, blah, 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 blah. But she was so eloquent. And that's also, it's one thing to know that the love affair existed, and it's another thing to breathe life into it and let us know this is how they flirted. This is what they did, and this was
and it is just so amazing because, Eleanor Roosevelt, still conceivably the most famous woman, like Terry did this scene from Hick in Africa with young people at a college, and they were fascinated by it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think that would be so for that generation and in another country, a completely different culture, but yet Eleanor Roosevelt is Eleanor Roosevelt. She certainly was the most famous woman in the world and conceivably, still is.
Yeah.
Well, I think she was the greatest American woman
until
the greatest
Beyonce.
American woman of the 20th century. I think that's I don't think you can find anyone who did so much for so long and with so much courage, was such a leader, really. So
well, I think right now many of us are longing for that time when that was what our leadership looked like. And we're hoping that we'll turn around to that. But there was so much need for leadership and help and support for everybody in the country. And then it happened.
Yes.
It's not perfectly by any means, but it happened. And so I think that there is, I think right now it's really nice to think about those kind of heroes and what they did for the country and what they had to face for that, which I think is really interesting. So you said that you performed in Mexico and in Africa. You guys get around a lot. So do you just
Morocco,
is it festivals? Huh? Where else too?
Morocco.
Ooh. So is it just touring to festivals that get you, or do you how do you make that happen? How do you tour the world?
Well, Carolyn just decided we were going to go to Mexico.
Yeah.
That was totally
I just did that on my own.
You need a vacation.
Well, my younger daughter was living in Oaxaca. And so she lived there for 5 years. And so I'd already been to Oaxaca at least once and maybe twice. And when I was there, I was just like, oh, this would be the perfect place to perform. There's a big expat community. So there's a library, an English language library, which is sort of the center of the expat community. And there's also this tradition in Oaxaca. Oaxaca is very radical. Yeah. And during the 90s, and they had, it was the center of radical activity in Mexico. And there still are these wonderful radical cafes where there's radical poetry every night and, stuff. So I really wanted to perform at one of those. So it wouldn't just be an expat audience. And then San Miguel de Allende one of my best friends lives there, so we had a place to stay. And so we knew we were, and also they have a wonderful little theater all made of stone. Oh my God, this place, it's amazing. I mean, I don't know when it was built, but it's just incredible. And then we also, we made a big effort to get other people in. But those were the two places I knew about. But in fact, some of I think our most memorable experiences were in Mexico City. Mm-hmm. And that really came I hired a woman to produce us, and she had a contact. I said, I really want to go to Mexico City. So she got us these gigs. And one of them was at the University of Mexico is just astonishing. Not only do they have this huge university, but they have 14 small campuses all over the city. And each of these campuses has its own reality. And the one we were at was the Marxist one. I'm sure it was many. Anyway, it's the radical university. Mm-hmm. There was no requirement for getting in. They can't take everybody who applies, but it's sort of first come, first serve. And they give this free lunch, or it's very cheap. It's 10 pesos or something. And they'll just serve, it's delicious, and they serve you this huge amount. And people are just there with cartons and stuff, and they're filling them up. They know everybody's taking this food home to their families. Mm-hmm. So it's free, and you get basically you get food. And so we're booked there for the Friday of the beginning of spring break. Oh, Friday night. I'm like, oh, right. Like anyone's going to come to this show. Mm-hmm. College students, the Friday night, the beginning. And Easter in Mexico is huge. It's huge, huge, huge. That week is huge celebration. But in fact, the theater was almost full. There were 200 students there. Yeah, and they stayed and they asked questions, and there were these deaf students in the front row with a sign language interpreter. Yeah. And then we went to Punta Gozadera, which was this lesbian collective where, again, they were having a whole weekend of like poetry and martial arts or something. And this was the last night of this weekend. I just thought, oh, brother. But again, we didn't start till 10 o'clock at night, and they stayed and they wanted to talk to us all night. And of course, they're incredibly brave. I mean, women were killed the year before putting up posters for a free clinic. I mean, it's dangerous. Yeah. And so it was an incredible experience. But also for me, going to Virginia was an incredible experience.
For state Virginia.
It was really like a Washington D.C. performance right across the Potomac.
I lived in DC and in Virginia.
Yeah. What's it called? No, Corners.
Oh, God.
Four Corners?
Four Corners. And they have a wonderful theater there, a community theater.
First stage. Yeah.
First stage. They do great stuff. And this was their first little festival. And they had 3 solo shows, and we were one of them. And for me, it was incredible because there was, it was just... They are very professional. Their tech's extremely professional. So walking in, it was the first time I think in my life that I walked in and I was treated with all this respect as the director. Nice. I was just like, whoa. Because I've worked with many, many, many wonderful people, but generally I work very hard. And here there were people that wanted to do everything. There was a lighting designer and a sound. Wow.
Really cool. Yeah.
And it was amazing. Yeah.
That is good. Yeah.
We both love to tour. We love to travel. Terry's traveled a lot more than me, but in Lilith, we did tour. We love to do tours. It's the best way to travel there is.
Yeah, it is, because you have a reason to be there.
Yeah.
Well, because I was a solo performer, I had these solo shows. I traveled a lot all over U.S. and Europe, and I ended up in South Africa because my friend called me and he said the gay synagogue is having an online auction, and there's 2 round-trip tickets to South Africa. And they're really cheap. You want to put a bid on them? So I said, oh, sure. What the hell? So we got the tickets, and then we had to go to South Africa. So I said, well, if I'm going to go all the way to South Africa, I might as well perform.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure how I connected with somebody in Cape Town. And she, there's a lesbian bar in Cape Town, so
Mhm.
that's where I performed. And then there at the big English language university in Johannesburg, University of Witwatersrand, has this incredible theater program called Theater for Life. And the concept is you are being trained in theater so you can go out into the community and change the world.
Oh, it's wonderful.
So you're getting a very intensive artistic training, but there's also this concept that they're using it to reach it, not to be in a traditional theater, to do other
Right.
than traditional theater. So it's a pretty exciting and adventurous program. And so they produced me, and that's when I did, I called it, what I call it, Lesbo Solo. I
Lesbo
created
Solo.
Lesbo Solo for these 2 South African performances. And I was with the friend I was traveling with. He was a communist, okay, gay man. He was very radical. He said, he hadn't seen Hick because we'd never done him. He said, you should do the scene from Hick. You should do the scene from Hick. And I didn't do it at the Dyke Bar. And he said, come on, do the scene from Hick. I said, come on, college students in South Africa aren't going to care. I did it really just because he bugged me. And he was right.
Yeah.
That was the scene that I went to classes the next day where people talked about what they had seen in my performance. That was what they wanted to talk about. And they were so moved by it. And that really, Carolyn's the engine of what we do. And Carolyn had been pushing me to write this play. And I've been procrastinating. And then when I saw how meaningful it was to young Black Africans,
Yeah.
I said, okay.
Yeah. No, that's very, very valuable.
Yeah.
Do you, as we are we should wrap up soon. It's been about an hour. But
Wow.
I know it goes quick when you're having fun.
It does when you're talking. It goes so fast.
It's just one of those things where, we don't have these conversations so often. And so you just sort of fall into it. It feels so nice. And I'm like, let's just do it for another 7 hours. And some of my earlier talk shows were close. But do you have any other plans outside of anything for us to look for? I know you have your podcast that will be available everywhere. And here, someone was. Crackpot Crohn's podcast is available wherever you get podcasts. That sounds like an NPR. I feel like I should have done that. Crackpot Crohn's.
Leslie. Good.
Put that up. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah, thank you.
www.theater.com.
Yeah.
So we can look for that. And then there is, the book. So those who don't know,
the book.
Theater. We have a press called Exit Theater Press. And I think this is the last thing we were able to publish before we all got shut down COVID. And it's pretty exciting. And I know you guys worked on it for a very long time. And you can get that book, I think, on Amazon. Still?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's true. If not, I'll find some other way for you to get the book. But that's also a book that's available for people to pick up. And mostly, we hope to see you all on Thursday.
Excellent.
Do you have any final thoughts or notes before I kick you off the show?
I just think it's going to be exciting to have because Carolyn and I have, friends in Europe, and I'm just really excited about them seeing this and us. Even though I won't, it's not. I won't have the same relationship with the audience yet. Somehow we all will still be together.
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, I think the reason. Yeah. I think the reason why we're holding on to live performance so much is I do think it affects the energy of a piece. It certainly did with Snow Walk. And that even though we'd seen her rehearse and she's fabulous, she's always good. She rehearses.
She was
well,
wonderful.
But there's just an elevation of like, I know you're there and you're listening. And so there is something about it that gives us something closer to a theatrical experience, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. I've never done it before.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I just want to say that that getting to know the Exit Theater better has been such a wonderful part of my life. I mean, we're part of it, and we're a tangential part, but I feel at home
Your family.
at the Exit. I feel it.
Yeah.
And when times come, please everybody keep checking out what they're doing now. I just think it's wonderful what you're doing. And then when theater reopens, there's just so many things that happen at the Exit.
Yeah.
It's really a wonderful place, and it's very supportive of artists, and the fringe festivals are wonderful, and the regular productions, and there's a lot of other fun things that happen at the cafe and stuff. And it's really felt, I haven't had a theater home like this, so I love it.
I have to say the fringe festivals, I mean, it's very frustrating to me that it's everybody selected randomly in a lottery. I mean, it's frustrating to me as a performer because I want to be selected more often. But as an audience member, it's just an amazing experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. To go to the Fringe Festival, you can spend on a Saturday or Sunday, you can spend all day and all night there.
Yeah. Well,
just go from play to play to play.
Well, at the very least, you have the community of the staff and volunteers and the performers of that year. And at the very most, you also have that plus 7 shows on it. So that's not a bad day, even if some of those shows were not great.
And sometimes some of them are not great in that they're not polished, but they're incredibly moving
and brave.
And so it's there's something that probably wouldn't ever make it into a juried fringe festival,
Yeah. It's important to let the audience decide what their favorite piece is, not the producers. And I think that's why we stand by it so much. I mean, don't get me wrong, I get frustrated about it too, because I just want to have all my friends back every year. But the reason why we stand so strongly behind it is because we need to stop having the producers make the decision of what we all get to see. So the audience gets to come and say, I like that, I like that, I like that. And you may see something you wouldn't have seen. And some of my favorite fringe productions are not elevator pitchable, and so would never have been something that would have been picked up. And so I'm so grateful, and thank you for that. We love having you guys around, and we very much appreciate it.
We love being around.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to say good night to you too.
Good night.
Thank you very much. All right. So that was a wonderful, fabulous interview with 2 fantastic ladies I've gotten to spend a lot of time with this week. I do ask that you come on Thursday and see the live performance, if at all possible. It is a great feeling to be a part of it. And I, as an audience member on our last one, felt it as well. So please come do that. And until then, have a great Wednesday, I guess, because we don't have anything for you to do on Wednesday, just Thursday. I hope you all have a great night. And this is me covering while I find the right button. Good night.
Say bye. Say bye-bye. Okay.